We have time for questions, either about Mezzo Cammin or about our panelists or about their work. So we're opening it up. So any questions? Yes, Dolores.
Kim, I wonder if you could tell us how you define form in poetry when you were thinking about the range of work that might be there in Mezzo Cammin. I seem to remember that you had a pretty subtle and interesting definition on the website.
Well, we were thinking of, first of all, the journal came out of this conference, so there was the more traditional framework in terms of that, but we also wanted to be open to different ways of defining form, and in the seminar that I was a part of that helped to shape the journal, there were also references to semi-formalists and the semi-formal, and we were all kidding about what that would mean. So there's a sense of kind of working out of the base of sonnets, villanelles, and so on, and then getting a sense like, oh, if you start to redefine it this way, or if you make up your own form in terms of this using some of these tools. So we've tried to be open while having that centerpiece to the journal, to be open to different ways in which people can reimagine what form could be. So that's also been very exciting because people have said, well, here's my own form. And it's like, wow, that's really exciting. We could feature this, and also to be cognizant of different ways that people, given the digital age and so on, are defining what we mean by poetry. We have a feature, for example, in the current issue of Mezzo Cammin on digital poetry, and Marianne Sullivan, who's going to have one of her digital poems featured tomorrow, has several of them. So just different ways that we can start thinking about what form can mean. Yes, Hannah?
This is for Julie. I was particularly taken with the last poem you read. And I was wondering, first of all, has that been published anywhere apart from in your own books? And did you find that there's a resistance towards women writing with that self-confident, witty, somewhat bawdy voice?
First of all, it was published in an online journal called Southern Women's Review, very beautiful journal. And as far as yes, writing, in fact, my very first publication in Mezzo Cammin was an essay really centered around Gail White's poetry, but about the larger issue of women writers of light verse, and how traditionally women comedians in any genre, even stand-up comedy, usually have to kind of marginalize themselves before they're sort of allowed, to say things that are funny. They have to present themselves as, like Dorothy Parker, drunk and desperate, or, But, Gail White's poetry, Gail White assumes that very, authoritative, kind of satiric tone that, you usually don't find in women's poetry. I think, as we kind of progress, helped by Mezzo Cammin and other resources, we'll, probably get to the point where, women can write any way they please and, have it received that way. But that's a good question.
Other questions? Y'all are quiet groups this morning. Yes, Dolores.
Tell us about the readership of the journal. Are you counting the number of people who are coming online to read the journal, and do you have a sense of what the circulation has been over these 11 issues?
Well, when we launched Mezzo Cammin, I used to edit a print journal called Dogwood, and I did that for 10 years, and there was a point at which, and there are points that I can be a little crazy, I was editing both of them. And it was very interesting doing a print journal and an online journal, because print journals do a certain thing, and of course we've had a panel on journals already at the conference, but what I found was that we could produce a certain number of the journals, say 500 to 700, and then distribute them, and you know, people might share them and so on. But when we put the first issue of Mezzo Cammin on, within days, we were getting thousands of hits. And so just the difference in terms of where people are and what they're looking at, it was shocking to me. Now, as we follow the numbers, there are periods when we get a lot of readership. When a new issue comes out, we can follow on the charts, you know, definite spikes in readership. And then there's certain other periods, like when people are interested in a certain kind of issue and it's related to something else that's going on in the culture of someone too. Like we'll say, oh, what's happening? So that's fascinating. I mean, by now we've had tens of thousands of hits on the journal, and it's just people are on the internet, you know. So we've been so blessed to be a part of that, and I should in front of our crowd honor my husband, who actually was a web designer. He was one of the first web designers, and so when I got this idea to do the journal, I obviously needed some web expertise, and I'm not a web designer, and to hire someone to do this at this level with artwork and so on would have been prohibitive. But he has donated all of his services to the journal for free. So that has been great as we have moved through the journal and the different projects and the timeline itself, because we've been able to do that, and he's kind of dropped everything he's been doing to make sure that happens. He can't do that all the time, but as issues come out and so on,